3 hours per page.
Oh my god!
In this leaf.
You noticed.
My favorite leaf.
Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. Now, if you're new to the show, we can be found over at talkingjoe.co.uk. That is the website with links to all of the places that we are. Today, we will be looking at G.I. Joe, a real American hero, Silent Admissions, Roadblock, issue 1, released April 23rd, 2025, written and drawn by Andrew Krahnke with colors by Francesco Segala. It's a standalone issue featuring Roadblock again with his 50 caliber machine gun against a Cobra convoy led by the high-flying Wild Weasel. Now, we will be talking about this as normal with my co-host, but also with special guest, the creator of the comic himself, Andrew Krahnke. So let's first up welcome, as always, it's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers. And let's bring in our guest.
Hello, and welcome back, Andrew.
Hello, thank you very much for having me again.
I think it's a record-breaking return because not only have you come back, but you've probably come back faster than anybody else. Because
in a few weeks, I'll be back.
We are.
Let's remind people that
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just 7 weeks ago,
wow,
we talked to Andrew Krahnke about his issue of G.I. Joe.
Number 314.
314.
That's right. So we'll sort of get into all of that in just a minute as well, because I think it's an important connecting glue as to the story. But let's see, where are we? We are in week 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Silent Missions month. So Roadblock is the fourth one out of the gate. If we don't talk about the issue 21 reprint, in which case it's the fifth. So it's an incredible month of G.I. Joe. Have you been sort of looking at these other issues that have been coming out, Andrew, and seeing what the other creators have been doing to play in this space?
I've been checking out like the preview pages and stuff that have been posted. I haven't got my hands on any of the other issues yet. I haven't been to a comic shop in a few weeks, but I should have them held for me at my local shop, and I'm dying to check them out, just see how other people solve the problem of doing a silent issue. It's kind of a cool thing.
Andrew, have you had a busy couple of weeks? I'm noticing you're in a different room than when we last interviewed you.
I had to move everything I own into a new place, which it's a positive upgrade, but it definitely throws your life into turmoil for a little bit, and I'm kind of sitting in the middle of it. But I'd much rather be talking G.I. Joe than moving boxes. So.
Is there a benefit? Are you now closer to that comic book store? Or is your commute to that comic book store now maybe further, but more direct, right? Fewer red lights?
It's definitely further away, which is maybe better on my pocketbook, but it's just nice having I have my own room to set up a studio, and I can close the door and shut everything out and work. Whereas before I was kind of in the middle of our apartment and stuff like that. So more space, more places to put comics and that kind of stuff. So it's overall a positive thing.
Very good.
And you've also got a giant shark over your shoulder as well, which we didn't have last time.
I try to have something shark related in the background all the time.
There's some glare. Does that say man eater?
It says, man eater. It's a poster from I think it's a 1969 movie.
Okay.
Called Blue Water, White Death. It was like the first documentary that captured great whites on
I feel like I've had a shark month this month since we last spoke, because after we spoke, I went to go and see the play "The Shark Is Broken."
Oh, really?
Which is like a three-hander play all about the making of Jaws, and with the backdrop that the shark keeps on breaking down, so they're sort of hanging out, waiting for the shark to get fixed so they can resume. And it was written by and stars the son of the actor who played Quint.
It's Ian Shaw, I want to say.
Yeah. Robert Shaw's son, Ian. That sounds right. And then
New York, was it fun?
Yeah, it was cool. It was a lot of fun. It's dark moments and some more poignant moments, and also a lot of humor there as well.
The songs I've heard are great.
Yeah. Does it "Show Me the Way to Go Home" like 50 times?
Yeah.
We're gonna get this.
I was just on the spot trying to.
When's the shirt gonna work? We're gonna get this play done. The choreography is just.
Yes, and then I also played the Jaws board game, which is a lot of fun too.
Nice.
I would definitely recommend giving that one a whirl. I played that one with Chief, former Talking Joe host, the Chief. And before we get into too much into this one, just as a mission debrief from last time when we were talking about other silent issues, Luke Vartran Baronian on the Facebook group made a really good point about the Jinx book, which has the sort of the gimmick that each page represents a second, and he pointed to the story 22 Minutes, written by Harmer, which was a 2-pack comic called Resolutes, issue number 2, which came with Tunnel Rat and Storm Shadow. Although it's not necessarily completely clear from the comic itself, in the interview about it, he had mentioned that he intended each page to represent a minute versus a timing ticking down clock on a bomb. So yeah, always interesting to see, has something ever been done before or been done similar? And there's, it's so hard to come up with something that hasn't ever been done before.
That's like two problems together, doing a silent issue and then doing an issue where each page represents a certain chunk of time. I feel like that's making your job even harder to do, but
yeah,
it's a cool idea.
Exactly. If you can't make, if it's not hard enough already, then you've got to make problems for yourself. Great. So let's pick up with Roadblock. So you had just recently completed G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 314, and now you're doing another issue, hot on the heels. Can you sort of talk about the process of getting the gig to draw the Roadblock issue?
Yeah, it was just about a month after I finished. I think the inks for 314. Alex, the editor, hit me up with they were planning on doing this event, and I don't know if they had somebody else kind of fall. My deadline was a little short, so I don't know if they had somebody else lined up that dropped out or something like that. But I was kind of brought in last minute. And Alex said he knew that I had done like Bloodrik, so he knew I could at least kind of put a story together somewhat. And he hit me up and just said, "Hey, it's kind of short notice. I think he hit me up on like a Thursday or Friday and said, by Monday, could you get me like 3 rough ideas of what you might want to do with Roadblock?" And I was like, absolutely, because it sounded like fun. And so yeah, I think I got him either the inks cover and the 3 ideas like the same day or something like that. So it was very short just to get the whole thing started. Then yeah, it took me a couple months to finally finish the issue, but yeah, it was cool. I had 3. It's fun just coming up with ideas for G.I. Joe characters in general and doing research and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. Because again, I don't know nearly as much as you guys do, and so just kind of figuring out what characters to use and what vehicles and environments and stuff like that. It was a blast, but yeah, it came together kind of quick.
Editor Alex Antone said to you, "It's Roadblock."
Well, we talked over the phone and he said, like, is there one character you'd want to do off the top of your head? And I was like, kind of thinking for a minute, trying to put something together. And then he suggested, like, I was kind of thinking if you didn't have an idea, what about Roadblock? And the second he said it, I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. I got to draw him, I think, twice in issue 314. I've always thought he looked awesome. And I mean, he's a big hulking dude. It's just kind of what I like to draw. So it was a perfect idea. And as soon as he said Roadblock, yeah, exactly. As soon as he said Roadblock, I was like, yeah, I'm doing Roadblock.
Listeners
who
aren't
hulking
watching.
dude.
Okay.
in a winter wilderness. Of course, both Roadblock and Bloodrik. So Bloodrik. So this is just recently published in trade paperback. I think it only came out like in last month or so.
Well, it was last year. I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Yes, it's been a little bit, but
Okay.
it's the last big thing I did.
So yeah, if you enjoy sort of Conan sort of types going around dealing with mayhem, that's a top tip for you. And when we spoke to Alex Antone, rhymes with phone, he said that yeah, when he was thinking of who would be a good fit, a big dude would definitely be in your wheelhouse. He described you as one of the most exciting new voices in comics, and this issue proves it. So he's put it down in black and white. He can't take it back. There we go.
Very nice of him
Andrew,
to say.
If you're thinking of Roadblock, are you definitely thinking Roadblock's first costume and not his second costume, not his third costume, certainly not his astronaut costume? You're thinking of this shirt, these pants.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Again, doing the research for this issue, I found out that he did have other versions. There you go. So that's the second version. Another one I looked at that is just a slight variation of the originals, like the Tiger Force or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That they did, which I thought was kind of cool looking too. But yeah, I always thought the original was the way to go.
Mind you, Tim, Roadblock you see quite dismissive, but Roadblock in space would be a great excuse for a silent issue.
No, I like that costume. I just recognize that people want generally the version 1 or sort of the purest version of the character. Next year, if there are more silent missions, I'm rooting for Flint as an eco warrior in his green and yellow costume, as long as there's one panel where he's either zipping up or zipping down his jumpsuit and you can see his proper version 1 shirt under it. I just need to see him take off his beret before he puts on his amazing, ridiculous helmet. Sorry, we're talking about comics that do exist.
So we've already figured out the second idea that didn't happen was Roadblock in space. I'm guessing that the third idea was Tiger Force Roadblock against a tiger shark.
Oh man,
in space. At the risk of revealing ideas that you might use later, is there anything in broad strokes you can tell us about the two other concepts that you didn't pick or that editor didn't pick?
Yeah, they were in different environments. One was kind of on a big shipwreck thing. There's gonna be like a hideout for. I was gonna try to use. I forget the name of the group now. Dreadnoks, is that it? Because I think those are the guys that were in one of the first GI Joe issues I ever got. But I want to use those guys. I forget what the other idea was. Somebody with like a nuclear warhead and Roadblock trying to retrieve it on an island in the woods or something like that. But yeah, they were very kind of loose ideas because I had to throw them together quick. But I was just trying to figure out, fun characters to use. I mean, any GI Joe character I think would be fun to draw. So pretty much.
My next question represents a particular bandwidth of fandom, which is you have drawn one issue of GI Joe, and you have written a few comics, and you're new to GI Joe readers. How dare you write and draw an issue of GI Joe, comma, you have not earned this. And I was thinking, so my response to that is, I'm not the editor of the book. The editor gets to pick who makes this book. And like going in, Hama's not going to write these 5 issues. That's just part of it. But I was thinking, less than 1 year into the original GI Joe, someone who wasn't Hama wrote an issue, and then someone else who wasn't Hama wrote an issue. And one of those guys, Herb Trimpe, was very connected to GI Joe over the years. And one of those guys, Stephen Grant, wasn't. And you know, the first year G.I. Joe is very different from the 42nd, 43rd. But when this was first announced, I had the tiniest glimmer of that feeling, which is like, who's this guy? Who does he think he is that he can make an issue of G.I. Joe? And the bar is actually pretty sort of reasonable. It's you know, are you a professional? Can you make a deadline? Do you have some work in your past? Does the editor think you can do it? So it was a rhetorical question, but if you'd like to respond, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, that was kind of like in the back of my head as I was working on this, because obviously G.I. Joe is a healthy fan base. And, you know, we're all nerds about something, and anytime somebody does something creatively with a property that we love or something like that, you feel protective of it. You want it to, you know, fit the thing, and you want the person to have the respect for it that you do as a reader or appreciator. And so that's kind of, I did have that idea in the back of my head that like I don't want to offend any G.I. Joe fan, like diehard fans, and I just want to make sure that anything I did was fit the tone, I guess, as much as I understand the tone of G.I. Joe. And yeah, I know I tried to be respectful and do as good as I could, but you know, at the end of the day, hopefully I didn't rub anybody the wrong way with anything I did with Roadblock.
It feels like you did your homework as well. Like
I tried to. Again, I'll never know it as well as you guys obviously do, because the stuff you can pull off the top of your head is amazing to me. I should hire you guys as an assistant if I ever get to do another one of these.
Done. I just want to circle back to this point one more time, which is that if someone has a notion that like only certain people can do G.I. Joe, like, well, everyone who's drawn G.I. Joe for the first time for Marvel or IDW or Skybound, that's the first time they've drawn G.I. Joe. And you know, in the first couple of years of G.I. Joe, no one was a fan of G.I. Joe because it was new, and these were all adults just drawing the next book that Marvel handed them. So I just want to recognize my own very, very slight, like, shields up fan over protective, unnecessary sentiment. And if I can dial that down, it's like, no, what does this new person have for G.I. Joe? And it's, you know, the editor's there to help. And
yeah.
And I like the issue.
Okay, good. I don't think that's it's a natural thing. Like, it's a natural feeling to have when you like something or you care about something. Like with me, it's Jaws, or, you know, any number of things, or Star Wars a little bit and stuff like that. It's natural to have that feeling of like, I don't know. I don't want somebody that's just going to come in and try to cash a check making this thing, or warp this thing that I like into their own idea or own story or something like that. I don't know. I totally understand that or get that idea of, I don't know, you get a little defensive as a fan. I mean, fans are the ones that kind of keep this stuff going over the years and support it and stuff like that. So I think it's natural.
How long did you have to write the issue, to draw it?
I think I turned in the 3 story ideas. It was towards the end of November, and then the final issue was due like mid-January. So it was pretty quick. And for somebody that works slow like me, it was a struggle. It was a rush, in my opinion. And I went past the deadline a little bit, in all honesty, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's about a month and a half, I think. And altogether.
Tim talks about how long it took you to write it. Did you write a script for this in like the traditional sense? I mean, given that you were drawing it and also there were no words, what approach did you take to actually the scripting process?
That's a great question, because it's a silent issue, and just because I am the writer artist, typically if I wasn't showing the script to anybody else, or there was no editor involved or anything like that, I would have just written something very short, very rough outline. But I did actually break it down page by page in a script and send it to Alex and make sure that everything checked out and looked good. And I think he made a few suggestions here and there, nothing major. Yeah, it wasn't broken down panel by panel, but it was just page by page, a quick breakdown, just so I, make sure it was paced right and that it made sense and seemed like it had a logical flow to it and stuff like that.
Before we get too much into the comic itself, I did have a sort of an observation on a nice piece of synchronicity, which was that you've talked about some of your early influences on you and your style and what comics you loved before becoming a professional yourself. And I couldn't help but think about this particular cover, which is New Mutants issue 94, one of the very first appearances of Cable, as drawn by Rob Liefeld, which, let's say, bears some influence from a Michael Golden illustration of Roadblock.
I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about.
You kind of got to squint.
Yeah, I mean, I love both those illustrators. I mean, when I think of Roadblock, I literally think of just that image. I mean, it's so iconic in my opinion. And I also love Rob Liefeld for a million other reasons. But yeah, I own both those comics too. So I mean, they're both. I don't know. I'm not gonna rip on Rob too much.
Mark,
that's
while
okay. You're allowed to like him.
While you have this, is this the inside back cover of G.I. Joe Yearbook 2? I think it is.
I think it's the back cover.
Back cover? It's Yearbook 2?
Oh no, you're right. It's
because the back cover is Cobra.
Inside back cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Well remembered.
I have two copies. The second copy, the cover is sort of split from the staples, and I was like, well, now I can scan that image without comics already ruined. Okay, so Mark, while you have the Michael Golden G.I. Joe Yearbook image with Roadblock, and in my little window, I'm holding up Andrew's cover to this G.I. Joe. Andrew, is it too direct to say that this cover is you kind of redrawing that inside back cover?
It's definitely heavily influenced by that, and also all the awesome like Mike Zeck covers, which are just like a dude holding a gun and shooting. I mean, that's like they're usually right to left. They're shooting off like that. He's done that a number of times, and I just always think it looks awesome. And so it's in that, hopefully in that family. That's kind of what I was absolutely thinking.
And not just on G.I. Joe, Deathstroke 2. Oof, there are some nice ones left to right with a gun.
He's on great Punishers. I mean,
yeah,
I love a Mike Zeck gun cover.
This cover, the colors are pretty desaturated, which feels like a match for Francesco Segala's interior colors. And I was wondering, can you talk about the color approach here? Because you colored the cover, yeah?
Correct. Yep, I colored the cover, yeah.
And when I think of those Mike Zeck covers or that Michael Golden image, the color, I mean, it's the 80s, coloring and printing is a little different. But the saturation is higher, right? So folks, if you're like, what do you mean saturation? Like this yellow is not like Crayola 100% yellow. There's a lot of white added, and the brown of Roadblock's pants, it's sort of grayed out. They have some like tan added to them. So Andrew, can you talk about your color approach here?
Yeah, I tend to like slightly more saturated, slightly lighter colors than I think most comics use nowadays, and I think, without ripping on anybody specific, I think comics in general are too dark. The colors are too dark, and they kind of blow out the line work, and they kind of muddy things up, in my opinion, a lot of times. So I like to keep colors a little bit light, and no grays, no real dark colors. I just don't think that makes sense over top of line work. It just it fights with it, and it if you have good black and white line work, you should not need real strong colors like that, in my opinion. So it's definitely something I tried to do in Bloodrik and with the cover. And I work with Francesco, and he was real easy to work with, and he tried to kind of match kind of the palette I was thinking of, and we went back and forth a little bit on trying to get the interior colors kind of where I wanted them. And it's still something I'm kind of figuring out, because I don't have a ton of comics in print right now. And every time, you do something on your computer screen and you like how it looks, and then you see it printed, it looks different. And like the first Bloodrik issue, single issue that came out, the cover was so saturated, and it still drives me crazy when I look at it. I would have done it totally different if I knew that's how it was going to print. So it's definitely something intentional that I tried, and I still, like I say, I haven't fine-tuned it perfectly. Yeah, I want to see the line work if somebody took the time to ink something, and so yeah, that's definitely intentional.
Shall we do a creator credits and then a full cover gallery while we're talking covers?
Yes.
Okay, so this issue was brought to us by the team of writer, artist Andrew Krahnke, colorist Francesco Segala, letterer NA, with apologies to Pat Brouseau, editor Alex Antone, publication design Gillian Crabb, and creative consultant was Diana Davis.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A we just talked about, so I'll do this quick. Drawn and colored by Andrew Krahnke. It's Roadblock with his Madus, full body. Camera is 2 inches off the ground, looking up at him, and there's a little bit of forced perspective. Roadblock's legs are big, and his head is a little small. No geographic background, just a big explosion, and there are sort of two light sources here. There's the explosion behind him, and then there's the light source coming from Roadblock's weapon. So he's got some highlights on him, but they're pretty subtle. Cover C, which is the 1:10 ratio variant, is that same image with no colors, just black and white. There is this is where you get a sense of how much detail that Krahnke is putting into the image, that it's not just the big bold shape of Roadblock as a silhouette, and then the sort of force of the explosion. There are also many small lines on his pants, right? The detail of the ammo belt, all the lines that describe the explosion.
And
cover.
Here's a bit of fun as well. This is from Figure Theatre on Instagram. He's recreated that cover using a Roadblock figure. I think this is the 1/0 figure, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's the slightly more detailed 6-inch figure.
Cool. Yes.
Very cool. These
photo of a toy.
These just more generally, these silent missions covers have really inspired some of the people who take toy photography, and there's been quite a lot of fun recreations of them, which I've shared in our Facebook group. So cool. Next up,
cover B is drawn and colored by Jorge Fornes. This is Roadblock. In a sentence description, it's sort of the same type of image as cover A, right? There's Roadblock. He's not quite full figured. We see him from head to knees. There is an explosion behind him, and he's firing his Madus. In both covers, he's got his mouth open, but in this case, he's facing right and aiming left, and there is no forced perspective on him. And Andrew Krahnke draws a big, beefy, giant football player of a physique, and Fornes is drawing more realistic proportions, sort of no cartooning. This is a big man, but a sort of regular realistic man. And the explosion behind him feels, because of sort of the dot pattern on it, like it could be a physical explosion that's actually there, or sort of a graphic that he's been superimposed over. And then cover D is the 1:25 ratio variant. It's that same image by Fornes, except now he's peeking out of the negative space created by sort of I guess it's the positive space of the O of the word G.I. Joe. Anyway, so it's, there's red, white, and blue stripe. I keep explaining this badly. And the O is now a window, that Roadblock is sort of behind and peering through. He's in color. The background's in black and white. There's no trade dress, and you are meant to get all 5 and put them on your floor and feel a sense of satisfaction for getting rare comics that spell out your favorite word.
This one, I've seen a photo of it. In the photo, it looks a little bit more 3D because that barrel is sort of poking out of the O. It sort of really pops. A lot of people seem to be going up quite wild for these G.I. Joe letter variants. It seems to be creating quite a bit of excitement in the collecting community.
This is a fun, we have seen 5 covers that fit together. We have seen, sort of double gatefold covers where a comic has 4 images that are they're bound as part of that same object and you just fold them out. We have yet to see 5 G.I. Joe comics where you lay them side by side and spell out your favorite word in giant letters that you spent a lot of money on.
Do you still have some of these in the store, Tim?
We don't have any of the 1 in 25s anymore, but we do have some 1 in 10s.
So retailer variants, there's the cool Peter Smith combined covers continue. So these are the sort of slightly animated looking. We've got a big Roadblock here, as you might expect, holding a kind of minigun and standing in front of a kind of grey G.I. Joe base or something similar. Again, combined covers, making a giant.
Sorry, can you go back to the previous image?
Yep.
Hopefully this is a JPEG digital preview and not the printed final, because this has the incorrect credits over the logo above Roadblock's head. This JPEG seems to have the credits for the Spirit issue.
Yeah, you never know. That's for example that Void Rivals preview copy. No, that Void Rivals, the G.I. Joe issue 6 digital copy had the incorrect letter cull, but the printed copy, fortunately, did have the right thing. So yeah, it has been known to happen.
There was no need for me to email the letters page telling them what a horrible mistake they made. And here's my keyboard, folks, to see how worn down. See how worn down all these keys are.
All of those letters complain.
Because I'm always. Any other retailer exclusive variants?
Yeah, I think we've got to see all of the retailer exclusives now. So this one on screen is the Tiago da Silva exclusive interconnecting variant from Eastside Comics, which again join up to make a large image featuring the 5 Silent Missions characters. So this one is of Roadblock sort of standing on kind of rubble, barbed wire by his feet, with again explosion background behind him and some broken down walls and things, with his trusty Marjuice slung over his shoulder, and he seemed to be giving us a little bit of a stink eye. It's that sort of modern, quite highly rendered digital style.
Cool.
And then next up, we also have the Karen S. Darbo variant, which are Skybound web store exclusives. So if you want these, you can head over to the Skybound web store. Again, they form. Oh, I don't think I've got it. They form a giant. Actually, no, these ones don't form a giant image. These are separate. So again, there are multiple images for the various titles. This one is Roadblock with slightly less exaggerated proportions, with sort of in rubble behind him, with a kind of crosshairs effect over the top parts of the image.
Well, I'm happy to see Roadblock with sort of realistic proportions. He should be taller than everyone. He should be a little bigger than everyone. Larry Hama has said he thinks of Roadblock as a really big dude. So I am happy when artists draw Roadblock not just kind of big, but really big. And some artists are very much locked into realistic proportions and don't really exaggerate and don't really cartoon. It's their style is more realistic. I like my Roadblock a little cartoony, a little beefy, and a lot exaggerated.
Me too.
And then I do have, here we go. Another image as well. So this is the Jimbo Salgado Top Shelf Comics variant. I've on the screen, I've got the black and white art. I believe that these were published in color, but through Top Shelves, Top Shelf Comics, they often through these mystery packs or whatnot, show drops and things like that. So it can be somewhat more of a challenge to actually get hold of these in the wild. So yeah, good luck if you're trying to collect it, because they can be quite tricky to get hold of. And again, this one does form a larger interconnecting image across 5 different titles. He also did a separate Snake Eyes one, which wasn't interconnecting.
It's fun to see the different artists arranging the 5 characters in a different order. I think the sort of nitpicky collector in me would prefer that the order goes in the publishing order, right? So because the Duke comic is last, so my brain really wants to see Duke on the far right. But Duke's also the leader, so compositionally it makes sense if he's in the center here, like the one we're looking at.
So next up is a plot briefing to just give an overview of what happens in this issue. Be warned, from this point onwards, we're going to be spoilers ahoy.
Plot breakdown.
A Cobra convoy is transporting a prisoner through a snowy place. Inside is Lady J. The way ahead is blocked, and they turn around. Roadblock pushes down a tree, creating a literal roadblock. The Joe drops a couple of grenades into the middle before driving a battle bear into the fray, taking out Cobras left and right before ripping off the door of the transport and freeing Lady J. Wild Weasel arrives in a Rattler and launches missiles at the fleeing Joes, knocking them from their vehicle. Roadblock loads up his Marjuice, downing the Rattler. A parachuting Wild Weasel picks a fight with the big guys, but the Joes tag team him with some wrestling moves. And with Wild Bill on his way to Xville, Roadblock rustles up some gourmet hot chocolate to warm them up while they wait. There we go.
Key question, Andrew. In your original plot, was there going to be whiskey in the hot chocolate, and Hasbro said no?
No, I actually just had it as hot chocolate.
Okay.
That would have been a good idea. That's would have been a smart thing to do.
I would like to apologize to everyone on the planet for seeing Roadblock knock a tree down and not think, hey, it's Roadblock making a roadblock. In my mind, I just keep wanting Roadblock to be standing at checkpoint alpha. And so Roadblock can be at a roadblock, because I like that little playset. Mark, where do we start?
I mean, while we're there, Andrew, was there like a number of things that you thought to yourself, this is a Roadblock solo story, I definitely have to include these, and was one of them, Roadblock has to make a roadblock?
That wasn't it. Actually only appeared in this one plot I came up with, and I didn't think of it either until, like, spoiler, until he knocks down the second tree, and I'm like, he's making roadblock after roadblock. I didn't clue into it either. Even as I was typing up the script, I'm like, oh yeah, he's actually making a roadblock. It took me a second.
Maybe you can do a story where Beachhead leads a beachhead.
Takes a beachhead.
Flint is, I don't know, like starting a fire. Flint, shipwreck, the G.I. Joe, literal missions. Actually, these should all be, you know what? This should be a single issue, and it just each one page is a character just in 6 panels wordlessly doing the thing that they are. All right, very good. What else are the ingredients for Mark's query?
I definitely wanted to have him cooking something, just because I thought that's a good. Obviously, he's a giant dude with a huge gun. Contrasting that with trying to make it like a gourmet little thing, I thought would be awesome. So each of the plots had him cooking something at the end. I think one was he catches a fish at the beginning, does his mission, then comes back and cooks the fish or something like that. The other one, I forget what it was, but I definitely want him to have him cooking something and taking out his 50 cal and shooting down some kind of aircraft, because in his first appearance, I just gotten his first appearance, and that's like the first thing he does. He shows up and he shoots a plane down, which is just awesome. And so I wanted him to do that. And the final story we went with, he gets to shoot down Wild Weasel again, the Rattler, which is perfect. So
there's also
those two
nice thing.
There's also a tiny callback there, because Lady J is in the back of the Sky Striker in issue 34, right? Shakedown. It's Ace and Lady J in the Sky Striker, and Wild Weasel and the Baroness and the Rattler. And so Lady J has had, I'm sure all the Joes have had run-ins with Wild Weasel and a Rattler, but we have seen one in particular. I just want to call out, since you referred to Roadblock making food, Roadblock calls himself a gourmet chef in, I think it's the 8th episode of G.I. Joe, part 3 of the Weather Dominator miniseries, when he meets Honda Lou in the back of a stolen truck. And he tosses her an apple, or she tosses him an apple. But in Roadblock's original file card, it says Roadblock's dream was to be a gourmet chef. He was working as a bouncer to earn money to attend the Escoffier School in France, when an army recruiter convinced him that the army could train him to be a chef. And that's it for Roadblock and food in sort of toy canon at the very beginning. But we have had a couple references in the comics over the years, Mark. I can't think of any offhand.
I think in his first appearance it comes up. I could be wrong about that, but I thought he mentions it like pretty quickly after he shows up.
Yeah. Harmer definitely leans into it from time to time, and in the Devil's Due Frontline, there's a one shot about Roadblock. Here we go, one shot about Roadblock, which features him as a TV chef. So. Yeah, it's definitely one of the key elements that makes Roadblock who he is.
You mentioned that description that he worked as a bouncer to try to afford cooking school or something like that. Was he influenced at all, or was he influenced at all by Mr. T? Because Mr. T started as a bouncer. He was a big, ripped dude around the same time that maybe Roadblock was introduced. I don't know if there's any.
I haven't heard Hama ever say that.
Just curious.
But
yes.
Are there any other ingredients that you very good? Anything else that you feel needed to be in a Roadblock story that says to people Roadblock?
Not off the top of my head. I think I don't know if I found it in my research or if Alex maybe suggested the person he rescues in the issue be Lady J. I don't know if they've had story overlap before or something like that. So maybe that was one of the reasons for picking her, I think. But other than that, it was just the cooking thing, shooting his giant gun, and then just generally being stronger than an average G.I. Joe. And also in some of the descriptions and things I read about him, they talk about his temper. Like he's generally a cool dude, but when he gets mad and angry, he basically turns into a Bruce, and he can rip doors off of transports and stuff like that. So I wanted to include him doing something big and strong, like pushing down a tree and ripping the door off the back of that thing and that kind of stuff.
So a more broad question, which maybe splits the difference of the last two questions. So you've drawn a regular issue of G.I. Joe. You have written and drawn your own comics. Are there things that when you approached this wordless issue, things that you wanted to do specific to this issue? Like, what are the ingredients that you think of that might go into a wordless comic?
Boy, that's a great question. I mean, keeping the story kind of simple, obviously.
Okay.
There's not a easy way to do anything subtle or nuanced, really. I mean, the fact that it's one basically big, long action sequence was, I think, kind of essential, because that's, I don't know, it's very easy to break those down. At least for me, that's some of the first stuff I ever drew, first comic pages I ever did were wordless fight scenes and that kind of thing. So that was kind of easy, but just kind of keeping things simple. And then I kind of had to write it fast, so just making sure that it had a beginning, middle, and end was the main headache. But yeah, no, and then just seeing kind of how much I could do, or how much action I could squeeze into it without running out of pages, basically. Which is a little tough.
I think an interesting sort of just element about these 5 issues and it being the silent missions is in terms of the interpretation of, you know, what is it about the particular story that makes it, you know, that makes the logic of it being silent make sense. So like the original, I guess it's sort of it's beyond the fact that they needed to create something really quickly and avoid a step, you know, the logic there is about it being kind of a sort of stealthy mission. In the Beachheads story, people have observed that there's people talking maybe foreign languages, and so the words you know, can be avoided by that because they can't communicate necessarily with language. Again, sort of got another couple of kind of stealthy insertion kind of stories in the month. So am I hearing that kind of the way you went to for this was that the logic of this being a silent issue is that it's kind of action, don't need the words because it's the action driving the story.
Yeah, the scenario itself is very simple. I mean, as soon as you see, you know, Roadblock is keeping an eye on the Cobras and they've got Lady J in the back of that thing, what else do you really need to know? I guess, you know, he's trying to rescue her, you know, that kind of thing, and then he's going to fight the Cobras or get away from the Cobras. It was, yeah, keeping it very simple was, I think, is essential.
I just want to call this out because I feel like every time someone has said, yeah, for these wordless issues, like keep it fast, keep it simple, keep it action, because you're not the first person who has said this, and the original issue 21 is very much like that. And I thought, yeah, and then for a moment, oh well, what would it be if it wasn't that? What would a story not want to be wordless? Like, oh, courtroom drama, right? Or like, no, I don't want 3 pages of Duke back at headquarters in front of all the communications array, like talking. It's like talking to Wild Bill, and then like Wild Bill's flying somewhere, and like, no, then he gets to rescue. He picks up Roadblock and Lady J. It's like, no. Just the running and the punching, the physical stuff, the infiltration, the physical stuff with a body, but also physical stuff in a space. And the more that it's someone standing around, right? Like in the original issue 21, there's a panel or two of Destro looking at his chess set. Great. Yeah. You know what I don't want to see? Him playing chess. Now, in a regular issue, if he's musing to himself, or like the Baroness has come in and he's like, ah, my dear Baroness, we have to take this Joe off the board, right? It's like, yeah. So, and since G.I. Joe is an action book, it's already lending itself to an all-out action issue. Anyway, is there anything in your mind, the contrast between a wordless issue and Roadblock's going to have this giant weapon that makes a lot of noise, and there would be no sound effects?
That was one of the questions I had starting out, was can I use sound effects? Because that would be a huge element to include and help. But yeah, no, I think it's funny that he's using like this huge loud thing, and people have made the joke about the cover, like he's screaming, shooting a 50 cal gun in front of an explosion, and this is a silent issue. Like it's,
and
I just think it's funny.
And yet no one looks at the cover and says, well, that needs sound effects, because we've all accepted that those are the rules for covers. There aren't sound effects on covers, and they're barely word balloons. Yeah.
Talking about like just how you approach the issue before getting too deep into it. You this came relatively soon on the heels of you drawing another G.I. Joe issue with 314. Was there any particular change in approach that you felt that you wanted to apply to this, or lessons from doing the previous one?
I wanted to kind of play around more with the proportions of the character, like I did with Roadblock. I made him, I think, bigger than I drew him in 314. Just I like playing with that kind of thing and making the guys look different. And in 314, I tried to kind of keep closer to traditional proportions and stuff like that. I wanted to play with that a little bit. I thought about the idea of, if you have seen the Bloodrik stuff, I see you got it behind you there, Mark.
Yep.
The way I rendered that, I did that all in pencil and then just darkened it in Photoshop. And I half thought about drawing the pages that way. But when I did, I did 2 pages, I think, kind of penciled like Bloodrik. And when I put it into the computer and darkened it up and tried to clean it up, it just didn't look right. Like the style was too dirty and it just didn't really fit. And so I went back and just did traditional inking. So I was kind of playing around with stuff and trying to, I don't know, figure out what would work best to maybe look different than how I might try to draw a typical issue of G.I. Joe, something that's, I don't know, a little bit different since it is me writing and drawing and it's kind of a standalone thing. It doesn't have to tie into really anything else. I thought about kind of playing with this style. I think I ended up just drawing similar to how I did in 314, but there's something I thought about. I didn't have a ton of time to play around with it too much, but I don't know, it was fun.
And you shared with us some of your process steps from roughs to pencils to inks. Maybe we'll have a look at those, and you can talk about kind of how you approached this. But obviously, my initial reaction at seeing these roughs, which I think are actually in the back of the book as well,
in the back, there's a few.
at least some of them, is the fact that page 1 across the middle of it has a title, Heat Seeker, which we don't get to see in the finished piece.
It because I was kind of following the rules of issue 21, where there's a title at the beginning and then no dialogue, no sound effects. I thought, okay, that makes sense. And calling this Heat Seeker, it was 2 reasons. It's set in a cold climate, and then there's firepower missiles and stuff like that. Heat Seeker made sense. And then, spoiler alert, the kind of wrestling move that Lady J and Roadblock do at the end is based off of a finishing move called the Heat Seeker that the Harlem Heat tag team used to do. And so that was another. That's why it was going to be called Heat Seeker. It's just, I don't know. I felt like it fit. And then, but Alex said that they weren't doing titles on the other one, so that got scrapped. But that was why that was there.
He's like, we're not even paying a letterer to letter page 1, as in
That's right.
Rick Parker on issue 21 back in 1984.
Hold on, are you wanting a letter of credit here?
Hey.
There is another similarity to the original issue 21 in that this is a Joe infiltrating a Cobra space to rescue a captive Joe. Was that a purposeful look back to 21?
Maybe not consciously, but maybe subconsciously.
There have been plenty of stories where a Joe rescues a Joe, so I'm totally okay with this. How dare you?
I had it in my head. I was looking through a PDF of issue 21 while I was trying to come up with ideas and kind of getting an idea of how much I could accomplish in an issue. So I'm sure that was in my head, definitely.
I think this is where we ask about the specific characters that appear here. It's like, did you pick all the characters and vehicles? Did Alex Antone suggest some? Did Diana Davis suggest some and provide some reference? Because what we see on page 1 is 2 Cobra vehicles that we've seen very little of, and a Cobra vehicle driver who we've also seen very little of, and then an invented Cobra vehicle. So, and then later on, Wild Weasel and the Rattler. So can you talk about picking characters?
Yeah, that was a fun process. As soon as I knew this was going to be in a snowy environment, I just went through, you can find databases online of all the different G.I. Joe toys that have come out, and they're very good about including multiple images of those toys and stuff like that. So I just kind of went through every Arctic ice themed vehicle, just seeing what looked cool, what I thought could fit, which was a blast. I'm just sitting on my computer Googling old G.I. Joe toys, which is super fun. So yeah, I kind of got to pick some. Like I said, it's a cool vehicle.
We're looking at the 1993 Cobra Ice Snake in a rotation from 3D Joe's. Mark's put that on screen.
I wish I could have worked in that giant grappling hook that's on the back of it somehow and done something with it, but there just wasn't enough time.
And this one is a particular, super deep cut, I guess, because it's from later on in the run as well. I think that earlier vehicles are more well known, but yeah, this isn't one that I ever owned, and yeah, unless I'd have done the research as well, I wouldn't have been able to get to guess to use this one, because it is a little bit more out there. It quite possibly is the first use of the vehicle in the comic.
Hey, that'd be cool.
And this is also in those final 2 years, the vehicles were smaller and simpler and reused parts amongst themselves to save money. Hasbro was making that choice in R&D because the vehicles were de-emphasized. But when I saw it on page 1, and as I'm looking at it here, it's like at the time I was like, this is smaller than the last 3 G.I. Joe Arctic vehicles, and it doesn't come with a dedicated driver. I don't like it. And now I think it's awesome.
I think what we could.
I didn't decide to use that one. I forget if it was Diana or Alex suggested it. They said like it was one of their favorite vehicles just because it's so kind of weird looking.
Yeah, so this is the Cobra Wolf, and I think most people would agree that this is one of, well, I guess it's definitely the coolest Cobra snow vehicle, and possibly one of the coolest Cobra vehicles. Full stop. It's a sort of a kind of funky looking.
It looks like it could be in Star Wars or something. Like it just it looks crazy.
It's got a cockpit as if it is a plane, and yet it rides on skis, but it has missiles and snow pedos, a la the 1985 Snowcat. And unlike, this is one of the only G.I. Joe and Cobra vehicles that is asymmetrical, which means it has a very different profile, and it makes it harder to draw. And then also because it's so weirdly shaped and it's these 3 different things combined, it's hard to draw to make it look right, because it's not kind of based on a tank or kind of based on a Jeep. It's, as Andrew just said, I kind of just imagine this on Hoth.
Yeah.
Taking out some rebels.
It is like 2-3 different vehicles kind of mushed together. I think there's tank treads in there somewhere too, but it was a little weird to get my head around it, but it was fun.
And then it is driven by the Ice Viper, a very cool Cobra figure who comes with a very cool weapon. Andrew, if you do another Arctic story, please find a way to work in the Ice Viper's weapon. He comes with a sai.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that. Which I'm pretty sure maybe it doesn't. I was going to say
with 2.
That might predate Raphael from Ninja Turtles. I could be wrong, but
I think it's Raphael's 84, and this toy is like, what is this, 90?
Okay.
My guess is that the influence is Raphael and Elektra.
That would make sense.
From Marvel. Okay, so
an ice pick or something. But no.
And then we go sort of old school with the what's the Joe Arctic tank? The bear?
Like the Polar Battle Bear or something like that?
Polar Battle Bear, right. I don't think anyone names it in the episodes. They just use it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those vehicles that when I see it, I say, I know what that is, and then I actually don't remember the name.
Yeah, I think when I wrote the original script, I was just calling them everything like a snowmobile. And I could either make something up, or that there would be something that would fit that in.
Right. Okay.
And then you've got this Cobra transport, this Arctic transport vehicle that we see well on pages 1 and 2. This is just a case of sort of the story demands you make up something new, and so you make up something new.
Yeah, I needed to have like an area where Lady J could be contained with a few Cobras around her, so that she could fight in the back of it and beat them up off panel, and have that make sense. And so I got to make that up. Tried to kind of combine different elements of G.I. Joe vehicles, Cobra vehicles. There's also a little bit of a Thunder Tank in there, and I think back end of an AT-ST from Star Wars, and all kind of cobbled together.
When you say Thunder Tank, you mean the Thundercats Thunder
Correct.
Tank. Okay. I want to call out something on page 1 that I like. Page 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels, and page 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is dense. the first several pages have a lot of panels. So there are a lot of story beats and sort of locations that you are presenting to the reader, and making it very clear sort of who's who, where they are, and who sees what, right? So, the top panel on page 3 is maybe the least exciting panel in the whole comic, but the fact that that's compared to punching and running and explosions, just a guy standing and looking at something. But what does it do? It establishes the tree that Roadblock's about to push over. It shows that Roadblock sees that the vehicles are coming, right? And it's this panel would not be as effective if Roadblock were in it, and this panel would not be as effective if it sort of tried to be bigger and combine what's happening in the next 3 panels, right? It's like the story beat here is Roadblock sees the convoy, and then the next story beat is Roadblock starts to push the tree, and then Roadblock pushes the tree, and then you reveal the axe, right? It's like, well, it's not pushing the tree over by himself. This isn't Colossus in that X-Men story, and that X-Men classic X-Men backup where he pulls the tree out of the backyard of the mansion. This is, but this is a key beat here, because we need to relocate Roadblock in relation to the convoy, establish the tree, and then like have a moment before he pushes the tree so that we can build up some anticipation. Because if we just jump a moment ahead and he's pushing down the tree, it's maybe a little less delicious, because it's like, oh man, he's doing it. He's pushing the tree. But can he do that? Well, he's really big. Oh, he's got an axe. Thunk.
Yeah, and I was kind of fighting with, because Roadblock doesn't really officially show up until I think it's like page 6, where he's jumping the snow machine over the tree. And so I needed to kind of like reestablish him and, make sure that it's Roadblock doing this stuff. It's not just a pair of hands on the tree. So I kind of wanted to show him, but I also wanted to leave the kind of big reveal, nice big shot of him for, that page right there, that page 6 where he's jumping that. So yeah, and then just to reestablish him, make things as clear as possible. Because again, when you're telling a story just with pictures, I always try to be careful or try to give the audience as much information, keep things really established and plain and clear as much as possible. And so I kind of had to show him again there.
It's funny to talk about sort of big reveals, because you kind of got the big reveal of Roadblock, and then his reveal has him holding some sort of an assault rifle, but it's not his gun. It's not the Marjuice. I mean, it would be hard to hold the Marjuice as you're one-handed while another hand is sort of managing the steering wheel of a battle bear while it is flying through the air. I mean, that would be going some, but what that means is then you've got you're allowing yourself the reveal of the Marjuice itself a few pages later on, when he's able to then take that out of its special carry case.
And it gets 3 panels, right? So again, talking about anticipation or sort of romancing a beloved character or prop for the audience, right? Like we've seen this kind of pacing and care with swords. Like there's a particular sword that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are interested in, right? Or, imagine if there was a story where Scarlet starts out with, just a grappling hook or a pistol, and then she gets her crossbow, right? You'd want to give that a full page reveal, or a panel or 2 of her like loading the first bolts. And through not a lot of sort of panels and pages and covers over the years, just a handful, but like, because this is the weapon that this character came with, because Hama talks about this weapon and how like certain artists, like Michael Golden draws the bullets correctly in the Marjuice. He knows that every third one is a tracer round. It's like, Snake Eyes and a particular sword, Roadblock and this M60. And so Andrew gives it a little space it's like a present to the reader. Like, get ready, here it is.
I I think that gun is as iconic as the character of Roadblock himself. Almost like that's him with that gun is kind of just like I say how I picture him. That Michael Golden drawing. So yeah, when that thing showed up, I knew I wanted it to be a moment.
Even I forgot to. It's not just panels and covers. There's that scene in G.I. Joe Retaliation where Roadblock and Duke are having that competition, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson picks up this giant gun that you can't really pick up by yourself and without a tripod, and he does anyway, and he blows away the target and wins the bet. The movie's amazing. I do like that scene a lot. So going back to
Ken, while we're just looking at this particular page, can I just ask, on the box of the Marge UK, it's written Edna. Is that an Easter egg to something? Is this a military term that I'm just not familiar with, or what?
I was just trying to think of like stickers he would have on his gun case, and again, reading his backstory, he's from like Biloxi, Mississippi, I believe, is where Roadblock's from in one of the backstories. Anyway, and I found a famous. So he's from Biloxi and he wants to cook, and I could be wrong about this. Again, I googled this like 3 months ago. I think there's like a famous chef or famous cooking personality from way back in the day named Edna something. And so I figured he might be fond of the name Edna, and he would have that on his gun case as like the thing he cooks with. It's got that. So it's a very obscure thing that I'm not even 100% sure makes sense, but I wanted something to put on his case, and so it says Edna.
And can we sort of make the leap that maybe the gun is called Edna as well? Maybe that's in his own mind.
It's like B.B. King naming his guitar Lucille.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Something like he'd name it something, or just as in reference to his tool or utensil that he uses to cook, quote unquote, cook with. Have the name from a chef or something.
And while we're on it, on the I Spy, here's the jingle.
I spy with my little eye.
There was another one I saw, which was on the lighter that he uses when he's cooking. There's a little, I think it says MV.
Yes.
Again, over to you. No idea.
So doing research on Lady J, one of her origins, or I think the first origin, was she was from Martha's Vineyard. And if you're a Jaws nerd, Martha's Vineyard is where they filmed Jaws. So I love Martha's Vineyard. I'm wearing a Martha's Vineyard shirt right now. I don't know if you So I wanted to include a reference to that just because I love the place, and it's a reference to Jaws, and it's where she's from. So it's actually her, meant to be her lighting you only see the hand, so you can't tell, but it's meant to be her lighting the fire with her Martha's Vineyard Zippo.
And then on the cover, the ammo feed bag says feed bag. And I know of feed bags as something that you put up to a horse's head so that it can eat its feed. It's the bag for the horse feed, like oats. I don't actually know if this device for a machine gun is called the feed bag in military parlance, or if you're making a little bit of a joke on the cover.
That was just meant to be a joke, funny thing. Like your ammo your ammo feed is coming from the feed bag. And again, tying into food, it's Roadblock. He likes to cook. He's dishing up something hot, and it's coming out the feed bag. And
was that the other title of the issue? Dishing up something hot. Going back to page, so we're talking about Roadblock and this thing that he's so associated with, his weapon, his look. On page 5, Roadblock takes his coat off. Yes. And I really appreciate this, because as much as I want G.I. Joe comics to be realistic or grounded, and it's cold and people get frostbite, oh man, I do not want to read the one-page G.I. Joe story in literal missions where frostbite gets frostbite. But I do want to see the Avalanche outrun an avalanche. Okay. I don't want to see Joe's have snow all over them and be distracted, because I would think like, oh no, that he's going to get frostbite, or you can't bury yourself in snow without your coat and your hat. At the same time, I don't want every Joe to be wearing a big white coat and hat, because then I can't tell who they are, or I can't enjoy what they look like. And so I appreciated this panel, even if it's not realistic.
I figure like when he's sitting around waiting for the Cobras to show up, right? He's not moving, which if you're not moving, it's easier to get cold and you're not generating heat yourself. So he would want to coat then. But as soon as he's about to kick into action and start firing things up and it's about to get hot out there, take the jacket off. He needs to be able to move, grabs his gun and heads out. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of a neat little moment thing. Getting ready for a fight, roll your sleeves up, take your coat off, do what you got to do. And there he goes. Just a nice little build up.
It is a nice sort of G.I. Joe, particularly animated trope as well, with the characters when they're on an Arctic mission, that they will all sort of be in that sort of fur coat, in a warm coat with like the fur color and stuff. And at the very end of the story, when the other Joes turn up, rock and roll is rocking and rolling with another of those Arctic coats as well. But a great appearance, a guest appearance there of rock and roll in his objectively better version 2 costume.
It wasn't an issue or it wasn't a problem, but I had to basically tell Diana asked why he's in his version 2 costume, and the only reason is because that's the figure my brother had growing up. So it's the one I was used to. So when I think of rock and roll, I think of that version with like the bullets on his head and stuff like that.
The Rattler, I'm looking at the toy, looking at the blueprint for the toy, and the Cobra Rattler comes with 3 different kinds of missiles and 1 kind of bomb. The trio that's at the end of the wing is 3 bombs together. And I just want to make sure on page 11, page 11, when the Rattler flies over the snowmobile and then turns around and fires its weapons, I just want to make sure that the 3 missiles that are being fired are the 3 missiles and not 2 of the missiles and a bomb, because bombs only get dropped and go down. Bombs don't go forward. So Andrew, am I reading this right, or did you make a terrible mistake?
No, you're reading it right. I've never made a mistake ever.
Okay, excellent.
I was just.
Did we lose Mark?
I was just
picking up. Awesome.
Oh, Mark, can you go full screen?
Yeah, hold on. Let's do that. So here's the underside of a vintage Rattler. You've got.
That's awesome.
You've got one of these ones.
Okay, that's the one that looks like sort of 2 missiles in one.
Yeah.
There's this one, and you've got 2 of these that look very much like, missiles.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You've then got this one,
the stubbier one.
That one, which has got the decal on the end of it, which is one of the ones in the picture.
Okay.
So I am recognizing these 3 as being in that picture. Okay. And then you've got this trio cluster, which looks like that. And we're saying those are bombs that fall down.
So Andrew, excellent.
It's an awesome toy, by the way.
You passed the test. You may continue to draw G.I. Joe.
Thank you. That was honestly like I had a printout. I would have loved to have that toy in my hand when I was drawing this thing. I had a printout of like the accessories that came with the thing, and they were each broken down and trying to get it right and figure out where they were supposed to be on the wing and stuff. It was, again, I try to be as accurate as possible, and so the people that actually know about this stuff, like you guys, will hopefully not be distracted by me getting something wrong.
I was just distracted by, is this wrong? I know we say this just about every episode, but folks, G.I. Joe is a difficult comic to draw. And if this was a Punisher story or a Batman story, if Batman were fighting Talia and Ra's al Ghul in the Arctic, there would be 1 or 2 vehicles total, right? They're like, maybe it would be like a Batmobile in the snow, or maybe just like a regular snowmobile that someone could reference a real snowmobile or make up something. But here, the artist has to draw this very specific G.I. Joe Arctic vehicle and then chooses to make life harder by drawing 2 other specific G.I. Joe Arctic vehicles and then making up one, and then this specific Cobra jet, which has 4 different kinds of missiles and or bombs on the wings, right? And so the toy designers at Hasbro in 83, 84 making this toy want to be realistic to the A-10 tank smasher, the actual plane that the Rattler is based on, but also want to make it fun and toyetic and give kids lots of variety. And then on top of it, Roadblock and Lady J and 2 different Cobra Arctic guys and Wild Weasel and even a Televiper, right? So anytime I've ever given a Joe artist a hard time in front of their face or from the comfort of my own home on my own podcast with Mark for getting anything wrong or drawing anything a little simpler than I'd like, you didn't draw all the missiles. Is a very hard book to draw.
It is, and honestly, like it's all fun stuff to draw. And if I had like 3 extra months to spend drawing it, I would have loved to get things even more accurate. But yeah, you're not wrong. It's luckily there is those databases out there that had the toy and took a picture of every angle of it, so that usually you can find what you're looking for, but it's not always easy to replicate in 2 dimensions.
While I'm asking about accuracy,
I don't have it set up on my Rattler here, but I'm just looking at the Rattler as appears on around about page 14-ish once it's been downed, and the side of the Rattler is peppered with bullet holes on it. So again, very toyetic, because the Rattler obviously came with that separatable kind of panel that you could put in to put in place the bullet holes.
Really?
And also, when we think about G.I. Joe, and particularly the cartoon, planes do have a habit of getting shot down. But what do we know about planes that get shot down in G.I. Joe? There is always a parachute that comes out afterwards. So it's a lot of fun to see Wild Weasel making use of his parachute and coming down out of the sky.
So it was a cool way to have him be able to shoot the plane down, but also still get in a fight with Wild Weasel. That was perfect.
While I'm nitpicking or clearing you of any and all art crimes, Andrew, on page 1, 2, 3, 4, on the final panel, these 2 grenades come in.
Yes.
And Mark, maybe you can help remind me. When you pull the pin, the handle comes off. Does the cube part on top, that stays, right? That doesn't also come off? Okay, so when I've heard Larry Hama say like, "Oh, this artist got it wrong," he's saying that because they didn't draw the handle separated.
Yeah.
They like threw the whole grenade with the handle still stuck. Okay, good, excellent.
Hopefully I got it right. I don't know. I tried to Google as much grenade information as I could, and I don't know. I don't want to end up on some FBI list because I researched grenades too much. But hopefully I got it right.
There's something that happens on page 7, and then it happens again on page 18, which I really like. On page 7, between panels 2 and 3, writer-artist Andrew Krahnke draws a particular kind of panel gutter that has sort of an electric bolt shape, right? So in word balloons, when a voice is coming out of a speaker or over a radio, it's got jagged edges to show that the voice is being filtered. And what Andrew has done here, and it's extra clear because it's a Televiper speaking into his headset, and then it's the Ice Viper speaking into a radio handset. But the gutter between them is that jagged lightning bolt shape, and then there's this sort of asterisk burst in the middle. And I don't think Andrew Krahnke has invented this, but I don't remember seeing it before in comics. And I thought that was a really nice visual device to just hammer home that these 2 guys are speaking over a radio, and that these 2 panels, they're not literally simultaneous, but it's one moment after the other, right? It's not like a minute later or as long as it takes to get to the plane and take off later. It's he says something, he responds, or he says something and he's listening and hearing it. It's like I think the Tail Viper is saying like Rattler on route, ETA 8 minutes, and I think the Ice Viper is thinking 8 minutes. I'm not going to last 8 seconds because behind him is Roadblock picking off his other guys, and so visually it's really nice. And as 2 panels on top of each other, it matches the vertical of the previous panel and the next panel, and then it happens again on page 18 with Lady Jane, and Wild Bill, where I think she's saying like good to hear you, and he's like, be there in 2 minutes, pard. Short for pardoner. And just a nice visual device.
Thanks. That's I did not come up with that. I got to do that in issue 314 as well, I think, when they were taken off from the flag at the beginning. And that is, we talked about G.I. Joe Yearbook 2 and how much I like Michael Golden. That is, I don't know if you can see.
Oh, can you go full screen, Mark?
There you go.
Wow.
Nice.
That's where I stole it from. So
okay. So maybe Michael Golden invented that. Probably not. But maybe Michael Golden popularized this in one of the comics from the 80s that gets reprinted over and over and people still talk about a lot.
It's my favorite G.I. Joe artwork of all time. And he definitely popularized it, in my opinion.
Fun trivia about that issue. Colorist George Russo's not credited.
He's not credited, and there's no story credit. And I actually got to talk to Michael Golden at the Baltimore Comic Con this last year, and just asked him like who wrote that. Obviously, it was Larry Hama, but I just thought it was weird that there was no writer credit either. But
I think that's one of those cases where, because the credits were sort of meant to be on the inside front cover and weren't. Because as a yearbook, it was a little bit of it was a special. It was a little bit of a prestigious project, and that story was super late. Golden took forever to draw it.
That makes sense.
So maybe it was going to be published somewhere that would have credits not on the first page or on the second page.
That makes sense.
Reasonable editorial oversight. Tell us about this food kit and cookbook, sketchbook, scrapbook of Roadblocks on the second to last page.
That was, again, as soon as I knew I wanted him to cook something, and this being a silent issue, I figured I want to try to show a recipe that maybe people could replicate silently without words. I want to try to do a recipe just showing pictures. So trying to squeeze that into a G.I. Joe issue was kind of fun, I thought. And trying to figure out how to do that, or why Roadblock probably wouldn't need a cookbook, but I figured he'd have his little one that he, maybe takes recipes that he likes or something like that. And there's a way to show the recipe printed and have it fit within the story. And so it's in his little cooking kit there that he would take on an Arctic mission, I guess, because he would want to make hot chocolate. And
it's a particularly complicated recipe, so I can understand why he'd need to refer back to it.
I do want to say, when I got to this
so
page,
you put the chocolate and the milk in? Right, okay. Right.
And then you heat it.
Wait, the cinnamon. You don't just put.
That was why my hot chocolate was so crunchy.
Chunky chocolate cinnamon soup. Chunky, the soup that eats like a meal. When I got to this page, I thought two things simultaneously. One was I sort of chuckled to myself because Roadblock probably could have committed this to memory before. But two, a sort of delight because I'm certain there's never been a panel like this in a G.I. Joe comic. And I can say this more generally. There are not a lot of standard action comics have panels like this, and the closest thing this looks like is a diagram from like the Handbook to the Marvel Universe, or G.I. Joe Order of Battle 4, where you just see like a technical drawing of headquarters or a vehicle. There's that issue of Hawkeye from the Matt Fraction David Aja run, where David Aja is just doing Chris Ware and
silent issue.
Sorry?
I think it's a silent issue.
Oh, right. It's like issue 9 or so. Maybe it's 11. But like, has it Tony Stark is there with Clinton Barton, and someone's like wiring someone's stereo, or maybe Clint is in like someone else's apartment in his building because he's bought a building in Brooklyn, and there's just these like diagrammatic panels that just look like Jimmy Corrigan, the smartest kid on earth. And so I really appreciated this panel, and it also, in terms of pacing, something that I like about this issue is that because the first 16 or 17 pages are so packed, and because listeners, Mark has pulled out his Hawkeye softcover to figure out what issue this is, so we can get a proper fact check on this. Because Andrew Krahnke did not take up a page with a splash up until now. Every page has at least 4 panels, and plenty of them have 7.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of story packed into the first 17 pages. And once they take out Wild Weasel, the story is actually over. And as I was turning the page to 18, I thought, well, now what's going to happen? The story is over. Are we going to flash to some other Cobra headquarters, and there's going to be one more, like, what's the denouement here? Does Wild Weasel get away? Is he dead and they bury him? And so you turn the page and they make the campfire, and the pacing of this issue becomes sort of fun and unusual because there are 3 pages for the falling action and for the Joes to just sort of wrap up and us to just be with them, which we don't get a lot of. This tends to happen sort of at the beginning of a comic where they're like at headquarters or on the flag, like, what are we going to do? We've called into a mission. Like, okay, Joes, we're going on this mission. And someone like has a coffee cup and they put down their chunky chocolate cinnamon soup and like, all right, let's go. And here, an entire page is given up to 2 Joes consuming some food, prepping some food. And then you get this punchline on the second to last panel of the entire comic. I thought they had sort of killed Wild Weasel. Totally cool that they didn't. They didn't snap his neck with that kick. But for the mission, not only did Lady J get freed, but now they have a Cobra captive, and Roadblock, Rock and Roll, and Tunnel Rat gets to take part in the Coco, because I'm assuming there's a little bit more in that pot.
Absolutely. I thought it was just kind of like a fun moment at the end. Obviously, again, I wanted him to cook something, but also, if you've watched enough 80s cartoons, a lot of times, like I referenced Thundercats, at the end of the episode, there'd be like a little snarf joke or something, just a little thing where they go out laughing.
The camera pans back.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're all laughing.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little moment like that, just a little neat little fun capper at the end too.
I guess that means Rattler, the Rattler, got rattled. And then the theme plays. Right. Snarf.
And did we say this? The meal kit was actually being held in an ammo container, which is very cool. But I don't know how health and safety that is. Is there traces of like depleted uranium and stuff in there? I don't know. But the issue though as well does finish with the Tomahawk coming to help with their exfil, which is an interesting reoccurring theme of the G.I. Joe comics. In issue 314 that you drew, that's what happens, that the Joes finish their mission and down comes the Tomahawk. It's certainly the case of a number of other Harmer series, and in Beachhead, Spirit, and Roadblock from these 5 silent missions. The issue concludes with the Tomahawk rescuing the Joes at the end of the mission.
Andrew, I've got a challenge if you write and draw another issue of G.I. Joe. Now that you've drawn 2 issues which end with the Tomahawk picking up some Joes, I propose an issue where we don't see the Tomahawk on page 1 or 20, but we see the Tomahawk on every page between. Maybe the whole issue takes place in the Tomahawk. Maybe the whole issue takes place outside the Tomahawk. It's an aerial battle. Someone's hanging on with a ladder or a grappling hook. Cobra's hanging on the back. I wanted to call out a panel in this issue, which I liked for a couple reasons, and it's another unusual panel. This is on page 17. It's near the end of the comic.
Okay.
It's the page where they do the finishing kick move. Lady J kicks Wild Weasel, and they tag team high five.
Yep.
And then there's this panel of them walking away, trudging away, and I guess they're dragging Wild Weasel, but you sort of obstructed it with the
Snow dust or whatever.
snow they're kicking up, because you want the surprise, the reveal that they didn't leave him there. He didn't fall under the cracked ice. Okay, the final panel of this
Head didn't
page.
explode like a cantaloupe.
His head did not explode like a cantaloupe. That is a subjective burst of orange effect light. That is not a physical explosion of the innards of Wild Weasel's helmets. Okay,
Correct.
the final panel on this page is a vista of mountaintops, some of this smoke, snow dust, and a full moon at night. And Mark is holding up the Bloodrik collection. So this is partly an allusion to this Viking comic that you wrote and drew and own separately from this G.I. Joe story. But this panel also jumped out at me because it's traditionally this would be an establishing shot at the beginning of a scene. And there might even be a caption that's like, meanwhile in Barovia, right? Or later. And what this actually does is it ends the scene and it transitions. And what it says is sort of hours pass. It doesn't say like, meanwhile at the same moment somewhere else, right? Like back at the Cobra headquarters where the Rattler came from, or like just over this hill is the Tomahawk, right? And this strikes me as the biggest difference with this issue and the other silent issues, which are all in one finite amount of time that starts and ends. Maybe it's 20 seconds, maybe it's like an hour. And there's a particular time jump here, and it's like much later at night or even after midnight, and now it's the next day. And so it's another addition to this like final 3 pages being this falling action. I used that word as a joke before, but I think this really is the denouement of the story. A wordless comic is unusual. A G.I. Joe wordless comic is a little less unusual nowadays, but what an unusual panel at the end of a kind of unusual comic. And I like how this pacing is very different, because once again, because you cram so much, cram sounds like a negative, because you fit so much into the first 16 or 17 pages, the final 3 pages can breathe differently. And this panel here with the moon is a real particular transition.
Thanks for calling that out, because that's I wanted to kind of break up the pacing and kind of, everything up till this point is very moment by moment, moving very fast, but it's a lot of panels focused in on the action. And at the technically the end of the story, that's kind of what I was trying to do was separate this end of the story from the little capper at the end. And so we're pulling back from the action, basically. They high five, and then we pull back and we see them walking off into the distance. We pull back further and we see the mountains and stuff. And then the first panels on the very next page are kind of close-ups of the beginning of the next scene, where we see the footsteps in the snow. We see the wood piled up, and then close up on the lighter. So we kind of go from that very pulled back shot into very kind of tight shots on the next scene to just like you're talking about, kind of hopefully separate the two things from each other and show that passage of time. Again, just to break up the pacing a little bit more to transition into the next final little denouement end of the issue.
And the polar battle bear did not get too damaged, right?
I think I could still use it. Probably have to repair it, fix the tread on it.
Mark, I've been talking a lot, and why don't I hand the mic back to you?
Yeah, I was just thinking of a way of just trying to cram in, the Roadblock, you son of a bitch. Just whenever there's a power, high five. It's does make me think of Predator. That's just me. So
I'm always thinking of Predator. Don't worry about it.
Good. Half the brain, Jaws, half the brain, Predator. I think that's the natural state. Yeah, I think I sort of covered most of the things that were on my list that I wanted to talk about. So we can kind of move to wrap up mode. Tim, was there anything on your list that you wanted to
I'll just say one last thing, which is Francesco Segala once again has a subtle shift in palette from scene to scene, right? It's really obvious when we go from outside to inside the Cobra tank where it's all red. Once that second tree gets pushed down and there's an explosion, right now there's a lot of yellows. When we cut to the Cobra base where the Televiper is, right, there are greens. Right, the exteriors of the story are very cool. There's a lot of purple. Segala is using almost no textures here, right? If we jump back to issue 301 and 302, Mark, you and I were really struck by the traditional, I mean, they're digitally applied, but the traditional dot patterns, the Ben-Day dots that create comics percentages in color in the previous century. And those have been showing up less in Segala's issues, and I think sort of not at all here, or they're so subtle that I can't quite see them. And I'm a little sad that they're not there, since this is a different kind of issue. This isn't just the next issue of the regular Real American Hero. That's okay. And if anything about this issue was a rush job, that's a reasonable thing to skip in the coloring step to keep the book on schedule. And nothing about the coloring feels like unfinished or rushed. But since I did get used to Segala's textures on top of his shifting palettes in other issues, I do like seeing them a lot.
I guess it makes it feel a little bit more timeless, a bit more like a traditional G.I. Joe tale, rather than sort of quite so grounded in the Skybound ARA kind of continuity.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a real reason for him to shift away from that, other than just kind of being a standalone, unique thing. I had also sent him just as kind of like an idea of like palette that I kind of liked in general, and this being set in a snow setting. I sent him like some Bloodrik pages and stuff like that, which have a little bit of a texture on them, but not quite as much as he was using. So I don't know if he was trying to match that a little bit too.
There's this guy who does this book. He's really good. I think maybe just take a few lessons from him. He's yeah.
or don't do this. Do something better, please. Yeah, I don't know. But I was happy with his colors. I mean, I thought they fit very well. I don't know.
I have a I don't know, half request and half predicting the future, which is and Andrew, you don't have to respond or even politely nod. My prediction request is that there will be more issues of G.I. Joe drawn by Andrew Krahnke, and if there's I don't know, there's
nothing line. I
nothing
don't have anything to spoil, nothing lined up, but I would be up for it. And if they reach out with more G.I. Joe stuff, I'd be interested and definitely listen to what they have to say. And
you seem like a very good fit. And the funny thing is, like when you draw your first issue of G.I. Joe, it's like, who's this new guy? And then all of a sudden you've drawn 2 issues of G.I. Joe. And if there was a third, it's like, well, yeah, that guy's already drawn 2 issues of G.I. Joe. He can draw G.I. Joe. So I had this moment this morning where I thought, like, okay, there seem to be 2 art teams on G.I. Joe right now, trading off chunks of issues at a time. And maybe that'll stick around for a long time. Maybe someone will move on, or the schedule will need another patch. And I thought I would be really pleased with 4 or 5 issues in a row by this Andrew Krahnke guy. So there's my crystal ball prediction based on nothing and request.
From your lips to Larry Hama's ears. So yeah, I can't predict the future, but I would definitely be up for that. And every time I have tackled one of these Joe projects, I learn a ton about G.I. Joe, and every bit of it is fun. I mean, it's just, you guys know, obviously, it's a fun world to delve into, and every little thing is just, I don't know. It's the type of stuff I love to draw, and it's always interesting. I have not seen a G.I. Joe figure, character, come across my computer screen where I didn't think I'd kind of like to draw that guy. They just all kind of look fun. So I would be up for it for sure.
Yeah, it's even though like the weirdest characters is almost like then a challenge. Like, what can I do with this guy? He makes no sense.
Yeah, when I was spitballing ideas for the Roadblock story, I was coming across like some of the '90s, deeper into the '90s characters, and they're like the eco warrior. There's just some really weird, different figures I'd never seen before, and I'm just like, I want to draw that dude. And the colors are wild and stuff, like, I don't know. It's just a lot of fun.
Besides unpacking, is there a project you're working on now that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I'm currently working on the second Bloodrik story. I'm always working on that. Doing sketches. I got the story laid out. I need to do a rewrite on some of it, but I'm hopefully be starting to draw that sooner than later.
Would this be another 3-issue miniseries?
Right now, I think it's roughly 5, but that might change depending on things I cut and things I keep, and there'll be a whole editing process. And I tend to, when I do the Bloodrik stuff, it's a bit loosely scripted, so it's just as long as it ends up being is probably how it'll be, and I'll try to make it fit into 20 to 30 page chunks, but we'll see how it goes. But that'll probably be the next big thing I'm working on, and if better paying stuff comes along before that, like G.I. Joe is, that I'll probably squeeze that into the schedule. So we'll see. But as of right now, that's what I'm working on, mostly focused on.
And if people want to find you and see the latest things that you're working on, Instagram on Andrew.Krahnke and X Andrew Krahnke there as well.
Yeah,
and those places to be.
Yeah, Chumline's probably the best place. I don't post on Twitter too much anymore just because I don't like to, and I'm on Blue Sky a little bit, but that's, I don't know. Social media is weird right now.
Your website chumline.com, for people who didn't hear your previous interview with us, that's a fishing shark reference.
It's a Jaws reference, like most things I do are. There's just when you throw the chum out the back of the boat to lure the shark in. It's the chum line that you want the shark to follow to the boat, and there's the line that Quint says, "Keep the chum line going, Chief." So that's, I call my website the Chum Line, because it's just a reminder to keep drawing, and if you want to keep coming back and seeing stuff I make.
It works visually as well. You're doing that with your right arm over your shoulder. What? Oh no. Perfect. So yeah, I think we all enjoyed your second run at G.I. Joe. The issue was a lot of fun, and I've sort of seen from some of the comments online that it's been well received. A lot of people liking your issue. If they're able to suspend their disbelief about ripping off the back of vehicles barehanded, or the airspeed velocity of a rattler in flight versus people on the ground. I read comics. I'm okay with that stuff. I don't mind.
Okay, good.
It's fine.
I like comics that feel like comics, so that's how I tend to try to make things feel.
Exactly. So Tim, where can you be found when you are not talking to me and illustrious guests about G.I. Joe?
Video essays on TV and film at my YouTube page, Atomic Abe. I own a comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts. That's Hub Comics. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com.
Very good. And if you want to find out more about Talking Joe, the place to go is talkingjoe.co.uk. That's the website that links to all of the places we can be found, the podcast, direct links, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that stuff. It also contains links to Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane, and this version of Shane has got a cap with some bullets around the top of it, as well as Infinite Entertainment, and our very latest Patreon member who's not been added onto the screen, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. This is your first call out on a show. Oh, wait. Next time on Talking Joe, this time next week, we will be looking at the final issue of the Silent Missions month, which is Duke, on sale April the 30th from Wes Craig. So look forward to that. And then after that, we'll be
guessing there's no hot chocolate in that issue.
Is it even a G.I. Joe issue if there's no hot chocolate?
And then we'll be back with more G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, with I think we're up to 316.
No.
Is it 317? 316.
316. Sorry, 316. Yeah. Right. As it's a great jumping on points. Says the editor at the end of the silent issues.
With the return of Paul Pelletier.
Yeah.
Cool.
So until then, I think we are done. But Tim, just remind the listeners of something very important.
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.